Jaya Radha Madhava Sanjave Hare Radha Madhava Sanjave Hare Vijana Vallabha Girivaradhare Vijana Vallabha Girivaradhare Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachale Yamuna Tiravanachale Yamuna Tiravanachale Yamuna Tiravanachale Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjan Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjan Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Shri Radhe, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radha Shri Radhe. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Hmm. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are reading from Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, chapter 16. King Chitraketu meets the Supreme Lord. We're reading 46 to 47. see. I just want to take a moment just to set up my references here. Just bear with me. Okay, so 1646. Viditamananta samastam tava jagat atmano janar iha charitam. Tava jagat atmano janar iha charitam. Vigyapyam param guru kiyad iva savitur iva kadyotahi. O unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, whatever living entity does in this material world is well known to you because you are the Supersoul. In the presence of the sun, there's nothing to be revealed by the light of a glowworm. Similarly, because you know everything in your presence, there's nothing for me to make known. 47. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Sakala Jagatstiti Layo Dayeshaya Sakala Jagatstiti Layo Dayeshaya Duravasitatma Gataye Uyoginam Vida Paramahangsaya. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Sakala Jagat Stiti Ayoda Yeshaya Guravas Siddhatma Gataye Uyoginam Vida Paramahangsaya. Would anyone like to try to read the verse?
Oi. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Sakala Jagat Stiti Layodayeshaya Dravasitatma Gataye Kuyoginam Vida Paramaham Saya.
Namastubhyam Bhagavate Sakala Jagatstiti Layodaye Shaya Duravasitatma Gataye Kuyoginam Vidha Paramahams
Namastubhyam Bhagavate Sakala Jagadstiti Layodayeshaya Duravasi Tatma Gataye Kuyoginam Pita Paramahamsaya.
Anyone else? Namaha, all obeisances. Tubhyam, unto you. Bhagavate, your lordship. Sakala, all. Jagat, of the cosmic manifestation. Stiti, of the maintenance. Laya, dissolution. Udaya, and creation. Ishaya, unto the Supreme Lord. Duravasita, impossible to understand. Atma Gataye, whose own position. Yoginam, of those who attach to the objects of the senses. Vida, by the false understanding of separateness. Paramaha Angsaya, into the Supreme Pure. Translation. My dear Lord, you are the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this cosmic manifestation. Persons who are too materialistic and who always see separateness do not have eyes with which to see you. They cannot understand your real position. And therefore, they conclude that the cosmic manifestation is independent of your opulence. My Lord, you are the supreme pure, and you are full in all six opulences. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. Atheistic men think that the cosmic manifestation has come about by chance, a combination of matter, without reference to God. Materialistic so-called chemists and atheistic philosophers always tried to avoid even the name of God in relation to the cosmic manifestation. For them, God's creation is impossible to understand because they are too materialistic. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Paramahansa, or the Supreme Pure. Whereas those who are sinful, being very much attached to material sense enjoyment, and therefore engaging in material activities like asses, the lowest of men. All their so-called scientific knowledge is null and void because of their atheistic temperament. Thus, they cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militangena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashna Bhutale Shumate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Stubhyam Bhagavate Sakala Jagat Stiti Layo Da Yeshaya Duravasitatma Gataye Yoginam Vida Paramahangsaya. My dear Lord, you are the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this cosmic manifestation. But persons who are too materialistic and who only see separateness do not have eyes with which to see you. They cannot understand your real position, and therefore they conclude that the cosmic manifestation is independent of your opulence. My Lord, you are the supreme pure, and you are full in all six opulences. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. This tendency for the living entity, the jiva, to become too materialistic is intrinsic to being a jiva. The jiva is the marginal potency of the Lord, and its tendency is to get covered over. And so one can go to the extreme side of the spectrum. One can become too attached. One can become too intoxicated because the jiva is very tiny. So one always has to either be under the shelter of the Supreme Lord, or if one denies the shelter, the ashraya of the Supreme Lord, then the tendency is for the jiva to become too materialistic. So to become covered over by the material energy. And even for devotees who are practicing as well, one actually has to remain vigilant because the Lord's material energy is always acting. And so that's why we actually have a strict regimen of sadhana bhakti, performing devotional service with rules and regulations. And there are many rules. Those rules are actually meant for keeping us under the shelter of the Supreme Lord. So we'll first discuss the materialists, and then we'll see how we also can fall into this pitfall. So many people, they can understand that if they are too intoxicated, so they've had a drink or two, you can't actually study. So when you try to, those who went to university, everybody knows that if you are preparing for an exam or you're writing a test, you can't, if you actually overindulge the previous day, then you're going to have a hangover. But what isn't known is that the consciousness can also become too attached to something. So when you become too attached to an idea, the consciousness actually gets clouded. So this tendency, Krishna, he actually explains the process in the Bhagavad Gita, that contemplation on the sense objects leads to attachment for them. So when one is in the process of contemplating, thinking about something over and over again, then you become very attached. And when there's a pending separation from that thing, then you become angry. And so Krishna, he explains that attachment to contemplation on the sense objects leads to attachment, and from them, lust develops. From lust, anger arises, because material sense objects can never satisfy the living entity, and therefore the anger naturally arises. This anger is also exacerbated by Tamisra. This is a layer of ignorance within the living entity. Prabhupada describes it as an anger towards the Supreme Lord. So this anger towards the Supreme Lord as the Supreme Enjoyer, it's always there in the living entity because of this separateness mentality. So out of frustration, because one is actually always, a jiva always becomes frustrated in trying to build a safe situation, have a home, have a family, have life insurance, health insurance, but something always goes wrong. Whereas when you read about the the pastimes of the Lord doesn't have life insurance. The Lord doesn't, have to worry about income. He doesn't have to worry about paying bills. Uh, he doesn't have to worry about his girlfriends and his partners, his conjugal partners. Them, when they become angry at him, he doesn't have to worry that it's going to disturb his mind, because the Lord is the supreme enjoyer. So, hearing all these activities about how the Lord is enjoying, there is underlying anger towards the Supreme Lord. How is he keeping it all together without effort? He makes it so effortless. And even if one is atheistic, still, the idea that somebody could have created all this, the Earth planet rotating around the sun, the energy that's actually preventing us from going to other planets. We've spoken about this, the Van Allen belt. The seems like as a scientist, you have to constantly be worrying about funding, maintaining your funding. So the struggle of trying to understand the universe and how it came about, they are constantly being, there's obstacles to actually trying to discover the origins of the universe. And so naturally, they cannot think about that somebody actually did this. Somebody could be so much more intelligent than I, so much more powerful. And so the tendency and the cause of that is just this idea that you become too attached to your material intelligence. You become too attached to the way of understanding. And so Krishna, he says that then once anger arises, one becomes deluded. And then there's delusion arises. And from being deluded, so taking something to be the opposite. So looking at a mirage in the desert or on the road on a hot day, taking it to be water. So things get flipped upside down. And then that flipping causes the bewilderment of memory. So you actually forget how things are because you're in an angry state. And generally speaking, the living entity is always accompanied by lust. And so the tendency to become angry, this takes, there's a concept of pushing your buttons. So for the jiva, it doesn't really take much to tip them into a state of anger for most persons who are not practiced in yoga. Excuse me. So for this envy, this anger towards the Lord, and this envy, because I am struggling in the material world to achieve something. So here Chitraketu is speaking about scientists who are trying to understand the cosmic manifestation, because they have this underlying envy, like all of us. Then it becomes very difficult to actually see the Lord. So whatever conception you can see in the material world, you can think, okay, how did that person arrive at that conception? So for example, I don't want to get controversial. Let me try to think of another example. But there's different conceptions in the material world that, how is it that, okay, this should be clearly obvious to us, it's self-evidently true, but somebody is saying it's just the opposite, it doesn't work that way. And the reason for this is that you can't see properly. So my mother was telling me the other day, so she got this extreme pain, sciatica pain. Those of you who've had it know that it's very, very painful. And fortunately, there's this device which Lila Maduria Mataji, she got for me from Russia. I got her one. It also helped Mother Krishnamai. And it's some kind of magnetic field. And when you plug it in, nothing happens. Only a green light comes on. And so the manual says just put it in the area where you're experiencing pain and just do that over several times. So the first time she got it, like I got it for probably like 2 years ago or so. And I told her you should try it for your shoulder pain because she has arthritis in her shoulder. And she tried it and nothing happened. And I didn't give her like detailed instructions that nothing will seem to happen, but it actually works. And so she just, left it and like, okay, well, I guess this was a gift from my son. It looks like it's pretty useless. Doesn't do anything. So she just had it stored. So cycle back several couple of years later, and she has this extreme sciatic pain. So the pain was so extreme that she's looking for the toothbrush in the bathroom. And she tells my dad, I can't find the toothbrush. And my dad is like, oh, the toothbrush is right there. And he puts it in her hand. And she's like, but this isn't the toothbrush. And he's like, no, it's the toothbrush. So the pain was so extreme that she couldn't recognize the toothbrush. Yeah. And then, so the pain was very intense. And so anyway, she then applies, I tell her, okay, just try the device. Nothing will seem to happen, but just put it on. It helped one of the senior ladies here on the farm. She had broken ribs. So I used her example. Like, it'll work. Just try it. It helped me with my post recovery when I had my Achilles tendon repaired. It'll help you. So then she puts it on and she falls asleep for like 4 hours or something. The following day, she wakes up and she's just feeling like a lot better. The pain is gone. And she even goes for a walk and she's like, oh my God, for past 10 days, I haven't been out the house. Could finally get out the house and walk. And then she tells me that, yes, finally, I could actually see that, yes, this is the toothbrush because the pain had actually subsided. So it does happen for the living entity that either you can be in experience extreme physical pain or experience extreme emotional loss, and you can't actually see. So even though there's general states of where our consciousness, so what you can see is specific on the state of your consciousness. So when we are seeing Damodar, this when you take darshan, you should understand it's a very rare scene in the whole of material creation to see a divine couple with the gopis. It's very rare. You can't actually. It's not something to be seen everywhere. It's very, very rare. There's one devotee. He he was telling us his how he came to Krishna consciousness. So he always never wants to tell anyone because it's like when he says it, it's like unbelievable. He was from Swaziland, immigrated to Ireland, so that's where he lives. So he was telling us that um, so he got this. He came to study in the U.S., had a really rough time. So then he went back home after he completed his studies, and somebody had told him about Krishna consciousness, and chanting. And so then he decided, okay, I'm going to try to chant this mantra. And he chanted. And what happened was, Swaziland is like a mountainous country. And so he was saying, I was chanting one time and I was outside and I looked up and on the mountain I could see a young boy and a young girl dancing. And so he went towards it to go see what's going on. And he said the dance was so fascinating that he just couldn't look away. So he couldn't quite see what they looked like. It was just silhouettes, but sometimes they would come together, so into one form. Sometimes they would separate. And it was just so fascinating. And he kept running, try to go closer, closer to actually see the details, but they were actually their physical features, but they actually kept going further and further uh, away. So you couldn't quite see who they were. And he could understand that so then he kept chanting, and then he met this devotee, Savyasachi Prabhu. So Savyasachi Prabhu is taking sannyas on Saturday. So it's, yeah, quite a momentous occasion for the South African Yatra. And for all the devotees who've been touched by him and his preaching. So then Savyasachi Prabhu actually began to explain what he had seen. So he explained, this is what happened. I was chanting this mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra. So he was telling him that, I'm familiar with the chanting, but this is what actually happened one time when I was chanting. And Savyasachi Prabhu began to explain to him that what you saw was very rare, very, very rare. Not many people actually get to see this. And since then, he's been just searching for the divine couple, trying to, when he's chanting, so that he can actually get that darshan. So to see the Lord and his consorts is very rare. And to have the consciousness, to be in the mindset, to understand it, it's also rare. So you can see it, but you might not actually understand what you're seeing. So for us to be able to come before Radha Damodar in a mood of gratitude, mood of surrender, mood of dependence, and to see them as they are, that this is the Supreme Lord. He is controlling everything in Juniata County, in Spruce Hill. He's controlling everything. And this is his consort, Srimati Radharani. And her love is so exalted that she expands herself into Lalita and Vishaka to actually give the Supreme Lord more pleasure. So to see the Lord in that way, in this feature, it's very, very rare. So many people don't actually have this consciousness. So the consciousness is actually more important because the Lord is actually everywhere. And if you have the right consciousness, then you'll see the Lord everywhere. Yeah. So this is the what consciousness can do. It can either become too materialistic, where even somebody like guests or students, they can come and see Krishna, they can come and see Radha, Lalita, and Vishaka, and not actually understand. So when you become too materialistic, or you are in a situation of extreme physical pain, or too envious or too angry, you can't actually see who that person is. So Krishna he says here in Bhagavad Gita, Vajananti Mamudha Anuchintanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. So, to think Krishna is human, or to think Krishna as just the best human in the entire history of humanity, is also another type of Maya. So, to have this consciousness that yes, what I'm reading about, what I'm actually seeing, Krishna appearing in 16,108 palaces all at once, and he's doing something different in all those 16,108 palaces. Um, it's not it's not imagination. This is actually the Supreme Lord. And why just 16,108? Well, we can read about his servant, Chitraketu, who had 10 million wives. So this is a jiva having 10 million wives. But he didn't expand himself into 10 million forms. So from that, we can understand that, yes, well, if one of Krishna's servants can have 10 million, and then another more exalted servant, Lord Shiva, on his planet, Kailash, he has 10 billion. This is the description of Shukadev Goswami. No less than 10 billion consorts. So Krishna has unlimited. So you can understand Chitraketu, you can understand uh, Lord Shiva. So if you accept that, then you can see that, well, if these are just Krishna's servants, then Krishna has unlimited consorts. So to be able to do that, you need to not be a fool and you need to not be envious. So I was speaking with Paul Swarup Prabhu, and we're speaking about the uh, the the idea of prestige in society, and persons don't understand, or at least they try to want equality in society. And so what they say is that, well, we are envious of the rich, right? So people are feeling envy towards the rich. And so places like Cambridge and Oxford, they say that these places are intrinsically prestigious. And so to reverse this, then what we need to do is that we need to make them more accessible. So now people don't see that, well, if you have a lot of people now going to Oxford and Cambridge or these fancy schools, that now so many people can enter, then, well, the rich will just go somewhere else and there'll be a loss of prestige. So similarly, even with the idea of having the title of a doctor, is that persons can't understand uh, what is actually why the title now has actually become less prestigious. So the very people who have built up basically a materialistic science, you can't understand that even within their science, there's real problems. So, for example, to go to school back in 1950s to actually have a university degree, even before, actually, I would say, there was small percentage of people were able to actually get degrees. And then of that percentage, an even smaller were able to get doctorates. So the title doctor, it had a lot of prestige because it was rare in society, right? Now, when you make school more accessible, university education more accessible, even though statistically it's pretty evident that not many people actually make it in university, not many people are able to work in the major that they studied towards, still, for the sake of an inalienable right, that everybody is equal, we are all equal in the eyes of God. That means that everybody should actually have a university education. So what happens is that, okay, if you're cramming a lot of young people into universities, then there's going to be a lot more people who want to have doctorates. And therefore, when you have, and the whole thing of getting a doctorate is you need to make some unique contribution to that area of knowledge. And so what ends up happening is that instead of somebody advancing that area of knowledge, they come up with something very novel, something very, very weird. Like, example, how air conditioners, to study how air conditioners are intrinsically patriarchal. So these are some of the things that people really study. Is that they study these very weird type of subject matters, very niche. You have to make it very niche so that it can be original. Your publication can be original. And because the whole occupational field is driven by unique contribution, therefore, every year, to maintain your funding, you need to publish something. The science is not actually advancing. The area of knowledge is not advancing by those contributions, but more that we're creating a landfill. The publications are actually not doing anything. So whether they are published or retracted because of fraud in the data, it doesn't really move the science. So persons who are too materialistic, too attached to uh, empiricism, this is actually what happens. And they can't see it, that their very livelihoods, the integrity of their livelihoods, they're not actually moving science forward. In other words, they're not making a step closer towards understanding Krishna or understanding the source of that entire cosmic manifestation. They just remain stuck. And so, because of that envy and the origin, it originated from the envy of persons who have opulence. So, persons who have a title, it all originates from that envy. So when you're that envious of the Supreme Lord, then this is what happens: is that um, higher education just becomes a production of um, wasted energy. Essentially, is that money is being printed to fund all these grants so that people can like work at the university as career academics, but they're not actually advancing science. Their unique contributions aren't making a step closer to Krishna. So, in terms of us as practicing devotees, the Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, he gives very nice analysis on the first verse of Bhagavad Gita. Oh my. Yeah. Dhritarashtravacha Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yutsava Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kema Kurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, in Kurukshetra's righteous field, where warriors stood with weapons to wield, my sons and the Pandavas eager for fight, O Sanjaya, what did they do using their might? So he writes a prayer. My dear Lord, I often find myself trapped in the tendency to think of others' interests as being in conflict with my interests, to divide the world into simple, neat groups of those who are my people versus those who are against my people. Blinded by my own limited vision, I forget that this we-they mentality is a fundamental duality that leads to conflicts, which can grow into conflagrations devouring not just communities, but even countries and civilizations. Through your words of wisdom, you mercifully remind me that we all belong to one cosmic family, your family. The more I strive to align my heart with yours, the more I can become free from the selfishness that leads to blindness. And when, by your mercy, I am granted even a small drop of the mood of selfless service to you, then I might gradually see that all living beings are your parts, even those who oppose your interests, even those with whom I sometimes need to contend. It is only through a service attitude that I can hope to avoid unnecessary conflicts and minimize the damage caused by unavoidable ones. Bless me, O Lord, with the divine wisdom that grants me the sublime vision to see the commonality underlying all differences and to live in the light and service that spiritual unity. So as practicing devotees, this separatist mentality, we can get affected by it when our devotional service gets mixed in, becoming, feeling some feeling that's to an extreme. So either become envious or become attached to a very specific idea, become attached to a very specific set of circumstances in order to perform our devotional service. And when there's a change, we can get swung to become consciousness getting tinged with passion and ignorance. And so as a result, the separatist mentality develops. And we can begin to criticize the devotees. So when you look at the first offense to the holy name, to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy names of the Lord, the chief culprits of this offense is actually the very devotees who've dedicated their lives. In other words, those who are living in the temple. And under the auspices, or, where you discuss problems in your living arrangements, typically that's the excuse that, well, we're just having a managerial discussion and therefore we need to have a robust conversation. But there is a strong tendency towards having too many of these discussions, to discuss the subject matter too much, and that actually tinges our consciousness with passion and ignorance. And so that tinge, then you develop a separate mentality of separateness, and you can't actually see that this devotee is your brother, this devotee is your sister, this devotee is part of your family, and Damodar won't be happy if you're speaking like this about this devotee in their absence. So yes, this can affect us. And so by not seeing Krishna's devotees correctly, seeing their glory, discussing too much about difficulties in living with devotees, then you actually won't see Damodar properly. You won't see that he is your well-wisher. And so you'll feel the pressure, the pinch of trying to keep body and soul together. So we can see in the world we live in, the thing that pushes us towards becoming too materialistic is financial pressures. So the way the society has been constructed is that you should be worrying. Just to maintain your ashram, worry. You have to worry a lot about if whether you're going to pay your basic bills. Of course, if you've taken full shelter of, temple president, then, that burden usually just lies on the temple president, and you can just stay absorbed in performing your devotional service. However, when you are trying to maintain your own ashram, the Grihastha ashram, or move into the Grihastha ashram, you can feel that pinch. And so in order to actually successfully move, to successfully maintain your ashram, you need to see devotees in with the proper consciousness. And to maintain this, you need to maintain devotional service in the mode of goodness. So just as Dhritarashtra was too attached to his son, he couldn't see Krishna's universal form when he came and telling the Kauravas that, look, you're all going to lose. And the Kauravas, the Pandavas, they are the rightful rulers. And Krishna is like, I'm with them. I'm the Supreme Lord, and he's showing his universal form. And still, he was attached, too materialistic, too attached to his son. Krishna gave him the vision. Duryodhana, too materialistic, too attached, even though he could see, but he tried to arrest Krishna. So all these, even though they had seen the universal form of the Lord, he proceeded with the war. So we are not prone to this tendency of feeling an unfavorable emotion in devotional service that can swing us to having this separatist mentality, and therefore to not be able to see the Lord as the maintainer of everyone. And therefore, one becomes preoccupied about their own maintenance in devotional service instead of trusting in the Lord's plan. I took a long time. Sorry for not leaving enough time for questions, but we can go to the Tulsi room. So are there any questions, reflections, or contentions?
I have a
Thank
few.
you.
Oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. I was just gonna go. No worries.
Oh, I have a few thoughts based upon these verses. This idea that those who are too materialistic cannot see Krishna. So this brings to mind some verses from Bhagavad Gita. There is in the second chapter, text 44, Ogashvarya Prasaktanam Tayaparita Chetasam Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Samadhavna Vidhiyate. That in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So without the determination for devotional service, there's no possibility of understanding Krishna as he is. In the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we have Bhaktya Tvanyaya Shakya Aham Evam Virhorjuna Gyatum Jrashtum Chatatvena Pravrishtum Cha Parantapa. Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, Only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. And similarly, in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 55, Krishna says, Bhakyamam avijanati yavanyashchaspi tatpata tato mam tatvato gyatva vishate taranantaram. That one could understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So this is predicated on devotional service, which requires resolute determination. And that resolute determination does not come about for one who is too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence and bewildered by such opulence. No hope for them to progress. So then what should one do under such circumstances if one is too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulences? What is the hope for such an individual?
You're asking me, Prabhu?
Yep, that's a question.
Param Drishta Nivartate. So let's get the verse. Yavisha Nivartante Niharasya Tehina Rasovarjam Rasopyasya Param Drishta Nivartate. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So the process of sadhana bhakti is precisely that we, through a lifestyle of restricting sense enjoyment, we cease the engagements of the senses. So just like in yoga, there's a stage called pratyahara. Sadhana bhakti has that as a core competency to actually restrain. So we have to eat, sleep, and if you're in the Grihastha ashram, the need for sexual indulgence is there, but it's satisfied in a restricted way, and also defense as well is there. So all these bodily demands can be performed, but they're done under regulation. And because you're following the Lord's program, one actually cultivates a higher taste. So by the practitioner, the sincere bhakti yoga practitioner, saying no to sense gratification, saying no to vicarious sense enjoyment in the form of mainstream media, and saying yes to Krishna Katha, yes to Krishna Prasadam. So all this actually is the Lord actually helps. And Krishna even says, Srinvatam, or at least Prabhupada, when he was quoting, when he wrote his Markina Bhagavad Dharma prayer, that how will these persons actually take to Krishna consciousness? How will it happen? So Prabhupada was posing that question. And he answered his own question, how will they follow the four regulative principles? And he answered that question in his prayer, Srinvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravanam Kirtana. So the Lord is in the heart, and the Lord is actually not lazy. So this is a nice description Prabhupada gives. The Lord is not lazy in the heart, and so He is purifying the sincere practitioner of the lower modes, the passion and ignorance, which is the cause that's binding the jiva to addiction for sense gratification. And so by just sincerely applying yourself in sadhana bhakti in this way, saying no to sense enjoyment, but saying yes to devotional service in the form of having my bodily demands met by the process, in sleeping, eating, and defending, doing it Krishna's way, then this taste for high taste develops. And yes, you'll see something wonderful. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And even devotees who've tried to go back into just regular secular life, they can't enjoy because they can't remember the high taste. It's still there. And so the knowledge, the experience of the high taste is still there. They're not, can't be fully covered over by Krishna's grace in this lifetime. And so basically you need to annihilate this body, get another body to like forget this high taste. But once you get it, you can't, that's evidence that you can't, that the high taste persists for the struggle that these devotees have in trying to merge back into secular life. And then the devotees who continue to struggle, that's also evidence that the high taste is there. It's just a question of the mango ripening. So if we just persist, then yes, we will become fixed in consciousness. Does that answer your question, Prabhu?
Yes, that's good. So it is by Krishna's mercy.
Yes.
And prasad is a wonderful, wonderful way to affect a solution to that problem.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your additions, those wonderful verses in terms of how the resolute determination for becoming fixed in consciousness, for performing devotional service can indeed take place. Jana, you have something for us?
I'm actually just happy to hear those verses. This was a wonderful class and discussion. Thank you, devotees.
Thank you. Anyone else? There's another question from Dinapalika. Is another way to become attached? Another way to become attached to those is another way to become attached to those who do have. Is there another way to become attached to those who do have resolute determination? So that's glorification of those devotees and service to those devotees. That's typically one quote a verse on that, but that's usually how you develop. The example is if it has that what it gave, if somebody has a pet like a dog and you appreciate the dog and you ask about its welfare, then the owner is actually more pleased than you inquiring about his or her welfare, because that's a dependent, that's one of his or her dependents, and they're very dear also, because by dint of them being so dependent on the owner. So similarly, the pure devotee who has resolute determination is actually very dependent on the Supreme Lord. They depend on Krishna for everything. Depend on Krishna for eating, for sleeping, for maintaining their ashram, for maintaining their children, maintaining their disciples, maintaining their air travel, maintaining their health, everything they maintain. They depend on Krishna. And so for such a devotee, they're very dear to Krishna. And so when you serve that devotee, if you inquire about Krishna's, how are you, Krishna? How are your, how are your affairs in the spiritual world? Um, did you have to appear in one universe to maintain it when the universe was about to collapse because of a demon? So all these things, yes, it's nice you trying to ask about Krishna's welfare because the activities he does, the missions he goes on in the material world, actually very difficult missions. But Krishna will be like, nah, it's all good. It's not difficult for him, even though from our point of view, they're very difficult. For Krishna, not so difficult. But he's looking at his pure devotees, and the reason why he's appearing in these universes is because the pure devotees are very dependent on him. And so when you ask about their welfare and you serve them and he sees you serving them, then Krishna's like, yes, this one, he's actually becoming dear to me because he's serving he or she who is most dear to me. So that's how to become attached. And Krishna will remove that which is troublesome in the heart by dint of the service to these devotees. You'll actually become attached to them. Because you'll see them for who they are in relation to Krishna. Because already you have love for Krishna, you'll actually become more attached to them. So two things will take place by serving the pure devotees. You'll become more attached to Krishna, and you'll become more attached to them because of the gift that they've given you. Is that they've given you increased attachment to Krishna, and you become attached to them for that. Right. Question? Okay. Any other contributions?
We could mention the 6 means
Yes.
of associating with devotees, right? There's the Nectar of Instruction, verse 4. Yadati pratikrinati guyam akyati prichati punkte bojayate chaiva shadvidham pritilakshanam. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad and offering prasad are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. And so by that process of association, devotees increase their attachment for one another, and they, by that association also, they imbibe one another's good qualities. Particularly, we want to associate with more advanced devotees because we can make advancement in a great leap by that kind of association, rather than painstakingly progressing day by day through the trials and tribulations of devotional service. By the association of an advanced devotee, we can be elevated to a similar platform very quickly. So it's a big boost up just by practicing these different means of association. Simple, easy, but very effective. And then simultaneously, that's on the positive side. On the negative side, we have to strictly avoid the association of non-devotees so that we don't acquire those qualities. And those two combined, great advancement can be made. And that's the benefit of cultivating attachment for a devotee who's got resolute determination. We want to acquire that similar determination, so that can be had by association. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, so advancement, from anartha nivritti to nishta can be given by a devotee who's in nishta. It's a gift. Okay, there's another comment. In addition to personally gaining a higher taste, there's another method of developing resolute determination, the method of becoming attached to those who already have resolute determination. Yes, that's what Taraka Prabhu said. Any other comments or contributions?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu. Hey, Haribol, how are you?
I'm good, especially after this class. Thank you so much. I recently heard the importance of association. Ms. Mataji was describing that. She was describing the importance of always having the association. And she gave the example that even if one is at the stage of bhava, they need association. And she mentioned the example of Bharat Maharaj. He became so attached to the deer, but if he had association or mentor or someone he was connected with as a devotee to remind him, he would have easily been able to not get entangled in that way. So she was speaking of the importance of mentorship and higher association, even at the stage of bhakti.
Yeah, the need for association is a existential one. Krishna is never alone, and even if you don't, even if you're self-satisfied, you're Atmarama, still we'll see, because Krishna is never alone. Even that, if you're able to, go beyond bhava and into prema, you actually always want to be with the devotees, because that's where Krishna is he's always with the devotees. So there's the need for association for purification, but then there's also the need for association for ecstasy, tasting the ecstasy as well of devotional service. So yes, learn to love devotees, and because they'll always be there in your journey to perfection, and even in your journey after perfection. Any other contributions? Okay, thank you so much, dear devotees, for tuning into this morning's Bhagavatam class. So yes, let us pray to Sri Shrada Damodar, to our spiritual master, to Prabhupada, that we may take strides today in basically identifying any kind of separate mentality that we may have. We may take strides in so that we can actually see the Lord, see Him as the cause of creation, the supreme maintainer and annihilator of this cosmic manifestation, And we can remain fixed in that consciousness by developing a taste for serving the devotees, and loving Krishna's devotees, and exchanging six loving exchanges with them. Mantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi Haribol.